The following program is filled with truth and facts. This program may not be suitable for the liberal-minded. Hey folks, how you doing? This is Wayne Pierce for the American Liberty Radio Network. How are you? Let me crank up some stuff here, put some sound in my ear so I can hear myself. So anyway, hey, hope you guys are having a great day. There's always something that we oppose, do we not? There's always something that we oppose, right? We can have a friend of ours, say whatever it is that we say, that they say. We can listen to our friends. We can listen to our families. Okay? Excuse me. And we will always hear an opposing view. Even if we have one to our friends, we will always have an opposing view. Right? So why the opposition? Why the opposition? Why do we insist on opposing the truths and the facts that we see? Why? Give me a sec, folks. Hang on just a sec. Had to go and clear my throat. Didn't want to do it over the air. But anyway, why do we oppose anything? Okay? Why do we think we're so arrogant and conceited that we think we're right? Or do we just absolutely don't know and have no clue what the truth and the facts truly are? I think it's both. But that's only me. I think you oppose something because, well, number one, you don't know the truth or the facts. And number two, you are so arrogant and conceited to think you're right. So I think it's a little bit of both in certain degrees. But then there's a third factor to be a part of this as well. And it's real simple. It's the fact that we don't want to admit when we're wrong. We don't want to admit that we may not have all the accurate factual information in front of us. Going back to the point of we don't have the truth of the facts. Going back to the fact that, we just, Bottom line is, folks, the reason why there's opposition is because those people that oppose the truth and the facts and the actual factual information, number one, really don't care, and number two, don't have the truth and the facts. So there you go. You can talk about that all day long. But the bottom line is, someone is always going to oppose you. It does not matter who it is. It does not matter who it is. Someone is always going to oppose you. I'll get into the news and some more stuff as well right after this. Don't even go away because I will be back. AmericanLibertyRadio.com. The following program is filled with truth and facts. This program may not be suitable for the liberal-minded.
Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is looking for you. Do you like old-time radio shows? Do you do voiceovers and want to hone your abilities? Have you ever wanted to try your hand at voice acting? Well, you are in luck because Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is casting voice characters for a play currently in pre-production. For more information, contact Eastland Radio Repertory Theater at eastlandradiotheater@usa.com or simply go to their website at eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com.
Come on.
Yeah. What I want to do.
The reality underneath the honesty. Live Truth Radio. Live Truth Radio with your host, Brian Lang. LiveTruthRadio.com. Hello, folks. The American Liberty Radio Network comes to you to share the actual factual truth of what's going on. And if I don't know, then I don't know. Then I'll go check it out. Okay? Now, I feel, this is my own opinion, and I'll get into some news here in a bit. It's my own opinion. There's a part of humanity that I think we've overlooked or that we ignored. I'm not quite sure. But how do we get to understand somebody before we oppose them? How do we get to understand somebody else's view if we oppose them? Well, let me break that down a little more. How are we going to learn? How are we going to learn? How are we going to take those moments and learn what it is we need to learn to be able to go from one place to another in our lives? How are we going to do that? I always tell people, pay attention. Specifically here in this show, follow the money, connect the dots. How are we going to know who opposes us if we don't go and look? Give you a scenario. You and your friend are at your home and you guys are discussing the issues of the day. It could be sports, could be politics, could be anything. And it could be that you disagree with your friend. Why? Why is it you disagree with your friend? Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. Well, how do you know he doesn't know what he's talking about? Have you tried to understand what it is he's talking about? Have you looked at the issues or the subject that he's talking about? Well, I don't have to. I just know. Excuse me. Well, how do you know? I've taken it upon myself throughout the years to learn. Even if I disagreed with a friend of mine or disagreed with a group of people, I always wanted to learn what it was that I was opposing. So I decided to look at the things that I opposed, that I disagreed with. And guess what? I still disagree with them, but at least now I know what it's all about. In other words, I'm not going to listen to anybody else tell me that, let me be specific. I'm not going to have anybody else tell me that Alex Jones, Glenn Beck, blah, 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 Mark Levin, Michael Savage, all that are wrong. I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have it. I've already looked at what they've said. I've already listened to what they had to say. And if anybody comes to me and says, well, I don't know about that Alex Jones character. He seems to be, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, let me suggest something to you. You can do whatever you want, of course, but let me suggest something to you. If you don't know anything about Alex Jones or Glenn Beck or Michael Savage or Mark Levin or anybody, shut the hell up. No, that's bottom line. If you don't know anything about anything, why are you saying anything anyway? Doesn't make any sense. Until you know what you oppose. Until you know everything. Let me give you a brief history here of me. From when I was a junior in high school, I began to study different societies, different political structures, different ideologies, different philosophies, different religions, different everything. From the point of when I was a junior in high school. Other people were out playing sports and all this. Yeah, I was into sports. As I watched it on TV. Never played it myself. But I looked at all this stuff and I thought to myself, this is what people oppose. This is what people are opposing here. And this is what people are having an affinity to. This is what they agree with. And here's where I went. Why are people disagreeing with these people over here that know the answers, that understand what's going? Why are there people disagreeing with that? Well, I had to flip that coin over. What is it they don't know? So I started digging into that area. And it took me to two places. One, I assessed what they knew, these people that opposed me or anybody else, and I examined those things that they say in opposition to what it was I had said. I'm going to use me as an example, but in a general way, it was a whole lot of other things. But this specifically happened to me, what I'm about to tell you. Secondly, I went here. Not only did I look at what they were saying in opposition to the subject that I was talking about, I found the reason why. Secondly, they didn't know. And the reason why they didn't know was because of the fact they heard it from someone else. Either their parents, their uncles, their aunts, or schoolmates, whatever. And guess what? They were wrong. Every time they spoke to me in opposition to what I had to say, they were absolutely 100% wrong. Now, back then, being 16, 17 years old, I was out to prove everybody wrong. I was so arrogant, stuck up. I wanted to shove it in your face, and this is how it's going to be. And that's the attitude I had. until the proverbial rug was pulled out from underneath of me. And I realized that I could be wrong. Well, how wrong was I? Well, then I took a look at all of the things that I was talking about. I took a look at what others were opposing me with, in other words, their subjects against mine, and I began to look at myself as being the opposition to what they were saying. In other words, the roles were switched. Well, guess what? Didn't take me long to figure out that I may have overlooked something. And I did, and I went back and I looked at everything and sifted through the knowledge I had and all the information I had acquired. And I have to tell you, I was correct in my assessments over 90% of the time, but there was that 10% that I looked at and went, well, that's surprising me at that moment, and I threw it away. Because it didn't add to the rightness of the subject. It didn't add to the correctness of the subject, the accuracy of the subject. So those little things I just threw away. This was back when I was in my early 20s. Early to mid-20s. And it took me over 20 years. 20 years to decide I'm not always right. I mean, it took me over 20 years of accumulation of investigation and research and all of that to come to the conclusion in my early 40s that I wasn't always right. But then I saw something else. When I admitted to the fact that I'm not always right, I saw people use that against me. And this is what's happening right now. And my whole point is this. You can say whatever it is you want to say, and that's fine. But several things are going to happen. One, mainly, is that people are going to use your words against you. So you better be damn sure that you're accurate and factual. That's why I research and do a lot of stuff, man. I'm listening to other people and I'm going, that doesn't sound right. So I'm going to go look it up. And I do. I don't look it up on the internet. So to all my friends that say, well, you always look stuff up on the internet. There's this big building in your town called the library. And here in FEMA Region 8, where we are in Billings, Montana, we go to the library. We don't go to the internet. We go to the library. And we actually pick up this thing called a book, and we start looking through it. So I suggest you do the same. But there's always going to be opposition. The other thing that people do when I admit that I could be wrong about something is they use all of their negative information in opposition to the right, factual, actual information that I have. And they tell me, see, I told you were wrong and this is why. And they use all the negative stuff, all the oppositional stuff. They don't look at what I put out and what I talk about. They just use their bull crap, okay, to try to oppose me. So with that said, when I come back, I'll look at some articles here and I'll give you some headlines and we'll talk about those things and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, all right? So I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go away. I'll be right back. AmericanLibertyRadio.com is the web address. AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. Don't go away. I shall return.
Broadcasting from behind enemy lines in FEMA Region 9. Sharing the truth one fact at a time without all the BS. This is the American Liberty Radio Network.
Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is looking for you. Do you like old-time radio shows? Do you do voiceovers and want to hone your abilities? Have you ever wanted to try your hand at voice acting? Well, you are in luck because Eastland Radio Repertory Theater is casting voice characters for a play currently in pre-production. For more information, contact Eastland Radio Repertory Theater at eastlandradiotheater@usa.com or simply go to their website at eastlandradiotheater.weebly.com.
Chris Ann Hall, Liberty's lobbyist. Listen to the Chris Ann Hall Show. For more information, go to chrisannhall.com. That's KRISANNEHALL.com. chrisannhall.com. Hey, folks, welcome back. This is the Wayne S. Pierce Show podcast right here on the American Liberty Radio Network. Thank you very much for listening. So who has opposed you today? What, you offended by something? Get over it. And remember, if somebody else is offended by what you say, that's their problem because they have preconceived ideas about you and about what you say. In other words, they don't know your truth, your accuracy, your correctness. They don't know what you know. So if they're offended by it, that's their problem. Go to American Liberty Radio Network on Facebook. A video that was put up by Bill Whittle. If you don't know him, go to YouTube. Bill Whittle, Whittle. Check that out. Post-Paris, is Obama actually pro-jihadi? There's a video there on American Liberty Radio Network. Also from ActivistPost.com, the U.S. government is blaming the Fourth Amendment and Edward Snowden for Paris attacks. Seriously. You see the idiocy coming out of Washington, D.C. now? Do you understand that? Do you see it? I have to laugh because I've been watching these morons in Washington, D.C. since Carter was president, okay? And let me tell you something. These people up there in Washington, D.C. have absolutely no idea what they're doing, okay? You put Mr. Joe Blow or some mechanic down the street into the White House and put him in Congress, I guarantee you things are going to change pretty damn quickly, okay? So, I'm serious. TheActivistPost.com. The government is blaming the Fourth Amendment and Edward Snowden for Paris attacks. Seriously. Justin Gardner wrote this. Thank you, Justin, over at ActivistPost.com. You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. That's what Rahm Emanuel said. This crisis provides the opportunity for us to do things that you could not before. The surveillance state exposed through brave whistleblowers such as Edward Snowden has come under immense criticism, but government officials found their stride again with the Paris attacks. By the way, the CIA and the Mossad created that through cooperation with the French government. On Monday, CIA Director John Brennan criticized new privacy protections, claiming that they are hampering government's ability to find the terrorist. He also continued the push for law enforcement to get, quote-unquote, backdoor access to everyone's encrypted smartphones. By the way, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 has all that information in it. I believe in 1998 it was amended, and also again after 9/11, 2001. I think it was like August or September 2002. They amended it again to allow the federal government to get the information, to get the back door into your smartphones. Yeah, go look it up. If I've overlooked something, let me know. In his remark, Brennan said the attacks should serve as a wake-up call for those misrepresenting what intelligence services do to protect innocent civilians. He cited, quote, a number of unauthorized disclosures and a lot of hand-wringing over government roles in the effort to try to uncover these terrorists, unquote. The message was delivered at the Center of Strategic and International Studies after a video surfaced of what appears to be an ISIS fighters threatening to kill Americans and Europeans. The video proved to be quite useful for Brennan's fear campaign. Quote, I would anticipate that this is not the only operation ISIL has in the pipeline, said Brennan. It's not going to content itself with violence inside the Syrian and Iraqi borders, unquote. You can go to American Liberty Radio Network on Facebook and check that out. Now, who's in opposition of getting the terrorist? I'll tell you. It's the hardcore fascist, communist, dictatorial liberals, let's just call them for what they are, progressives, that don't want you to have your rights. They want to sneak around and get behind everything, and they want to be in your house behind your curtains looking at everything you do. So I don't want to hear any more of this crap that says, well, it's only for the sake of the freedom of the, free world. You use the word freedom as if it's the only thing that people care about. What about liberty? What about peace? What about security? Well, if you have freedom, you have that. No, you don't. Did you check your history? We had to kick some ass to get freedom, okay? We had to purposely put people in their place to get the liberty in America that we have today. And that led to the security and the peace that we have in this country. But now, within the last 8 years, 7 years, we don't have peace in this country because of this regime in the White House. Obama's a Muslim. That's it. Period. I don't want to hear any more from you liberal jerk-offs that say that he's, he's a Christian. No, he's not. He's the tool of the people that organize the New World Order, and he's a Muslim sympathizer. Or let me just say it as I have it in my head. He's a supporter of radical Islamic jihadis. And that's the way it is. Why do you put two and two together, folks, please? Why do you think he's opening up the borders? He's saying, come on into the country. And the governors of the states, 24 of them now, have said, no, get the hell out. You're not coming here. Okay? I don't know, folks. I got another break coming up. Jeez. I know you hate those breaks, right? But hey, go do what you got to do because, you got to do it. I'll be back in a minute and a half. AmericanLibertyRadio.com, AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. Talk to you in a bit. Be right back after this. Want to know what's happening all around us? You do? Great. Come check out the Diana and Wayne's Grab Bag Potpourri Talk Show, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Spreaker.com. Have a nice trip. See you next fall. Attending their daughter's wedding in South Africa promised to be a vacation of a lifetime. But first, they had to face the treacherous gauntlet known as modern-day travel. Waiting for them on the other side of the world are an honest-to-goodness safari with amorous lions and elephants with anger issues, a life-affirming visit to a South African school, and an anxious bride and groom standing patiently at the airport with a sign that reads, "What took you so long?" The answers lie within the pages of Please Hold Thumbs, a not-so-round trip to South Africa, a true tale of turbulence and triumph from travel mug Scott Cherney, author of Red Asphalt. Available at Amazon.com in paperback and on the Kindle.
This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands, and you're listening to the views expressed live with your host, Reverend Wayne Pierce, on the Free America Radio Network.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order. An order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good.
I won't have to worry about putting gas in my car. I won't have to worry about paying my mortgage. You know, if I help him, he's going to help me.
But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future.
The key point I'm making right now is that the economy is moving in a positive direction.
And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in.
You're telling me we got to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt? The answer, yeah, it's what I'm telling you.
We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. And now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world.
We're going to raise the debt limit. We always have. We will do it again.
We have $15 billion in gold in our treasury. We don't own an ounce.
I have been informed that the majority plans to block consideration of this amendment, which is number 1367, regarding the transparency at the Federal Reserve.
Foreign dollar claims are $27.3 billion.
It said that China has now surpassed Japan as the U.S. government's largest creditor, owning at least 10% of all U.S. debt, perhaps as much as $700 billion.
And we've just had announced that the dollar of 1939 will now purchase 45 cents in its total value.
President Obama is expected to face tough questions over the U.S. decision to pump $600 billion freshly printed dollars into its economy. Now, the move is an attempt to revive the country's finances, but will result in the devaluation of the dollar.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours,
you'll construct a legal regime to make indefinite detention legal.
History will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
They're starting a riot here.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
For some trips, it'll be faster than flying, without the pat down.
Anna was picked to go through. Pretty much everybody except the baby was picked to go through the scanner.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
Damn America, that's in the Bible.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
I've got a core set of values that I think have to be advanced, and that my individual salvation depends on our collective salvation.
You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
We had an election, and it was about a direction for our country.
And regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives, those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. In this vote harvesting time, they use terms like the Great Society, or, as we were told a few days ago by the President, we must accept a greater government activity in the affairs of the people.
E pluribus unum, out of many, one. In the end, that's what this election is about.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Over the course of 10 years, it would cost what it would cost us. All right. Okay. We're going to. It would cost us about the same as it would cost.
Hey, folks, how you doing? This is the Wayne S. Pierce Show right here on the American Liberty Radio Network. You can go to my website, WayneSPierce.com, if you would please. Yes, WayneSPierce.com. Check it out. I got a GoFundMe link there. If you want to support the American Liberty Radio Network, you can right through there. If you have any questions, please ask, because you'll never know if you don't. So you can email me at AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. And you can also go to the official site for the show, AmericanLibertyRadio.com, and check things out there as well. So I haven't written a blog there yet. I plan to real soon, because with this thing happening in Paris and with this presidential election coming up, nobody likes Cruz, nobody likes Trump, nobody likes Hillary, nobody, you just shouldn't vote then. Don't even, well, it's my duty and responsibility to. Don't give me that crap. It's all rigged anyway. Why are you going to waste your time going out to this ballot box and voting on somebody that's not even going to get in? Because, folks, it's all rigged. Okay? It's all rigged. In 2008, when President Obama was elected and inaugurated into the office of presidency, the people behind the scenes that put him there were then thinking, okay, who are we going to have in 2016? That's how far they were thinking ahead. Then they tried to push Hillary, they did all this, and now the general public is looking at Hillary going, nope, don't want her. Some people are looking at Trump going, oh, don't want him. Some people are looking at Biden going, definitely don't want him. So what's the point? What's the point of voting if it's all rigged anyway? Right? I mean, seriously. Hey, let me get end the show in a few minutes. Well, more like 19 and a half. So let me go here to activistpost.com. Why are the IMF, the UN, the BIS, and Citibank all warning that economic crisis could be imminent? Why are they doing that? By the way, let me tell you, if I were president of the United States, I'd tell Congress two things. Number one, you work for the people. That's number one. Number two, I would tell Wall Street, get the hell out. You don't belong in politics. You got enough to worry about. You just stay the hell out of Washington, D.C. And the third thing I would say is, hey, all you special interest groups and you lobbyists, you're fired. You can go away now. I told somebody that years ago, and they looked at me saying, well, how's the country going to how's the country going to run without these people? I go, well, by the people, not by these groups. They walked away. They turned away and walked away. And as they're walking away, they said, good luck with that. That's what hardcore liberals, though, and even those that say they're more conservative than anything else, are wanting, is a total upending of our freedoms and liberties and a total dictatorial socialistic society. That's what they want, period, end of sentence. And this jackass in Washington, D.C., who's a Muslim, and don't give me this crap that he isn't, he is. If you look at videos from 10, 12, 14 years ago, and when you look at the information coming out of Kenya, yeah, he's a Muslim. Okay? This regime in Washington, D.C. does not care one bit about you, as George Carlin once said. They don't give an F about you. All right? So anyway, why are the IMF, the UN, the BIS, and Citibank all warning that an economic crisis could be imminent? Well, Michael Snyder over at Activist Post wrote this on the 9th of October, just a few days ago, actually. He says, the warnings are getting louder. Is anyone listening? For months, Michael Snyder says, I've been documenting on my website how the global financial system is absolutely primed for a crisis. And now some of the most important financial institutions in the entire world are warning about the exact same thing. For example, this week, Michael Snyder says, I was stunned to see that The Telegraph had published an article with the following ominous headline, quote, $3 trillion in corporate credit crunch looms as debtors face day of reckoning, says IMF, unquote. And actually, what are we heading for? He said, Michael Snyder says, and actually what we are heading for would more accurately be described as a credit freeze or a credit panic. But a credit crunch will definitely work for now. The IMF is warning that, quote, the dangerous over-leveraging, unquote, that we have been witnessing, quote, threatens to unleash a wave of defaults, unquote, across the globe. Governments and central banks risk tipping the world into a fresh financial crisis. The International Monetary Fund has warned, as it called time on a corporate debt binge in the developing world. Emerging market companies have, quote, over-borrowed, unquote, by $3 trillion in the last decade, reflecting a quadrupling of private sector debt between 2004 and 2014, found the IMF's Global Financial Stability Report. $3 trillion over 10 years, that's $300,000 a year. Or no, not 300, that's $300 billion a year, okay? $300 billion a year, okay? The last part of that says, quote, this dangerous over-leveraging now threatens to unleash a wave of defaults that will imperil an already weak global economy, said stark findings from the IMF's twice-yearly report, unquote. The IMF is actually telling the truth. In this instance, we are in the midst of the greatest debt bubble of the world has ever seen, and it is a monumental threat to the global financial system. But even though we know about this threat, that doesn't mean that we can do anything about it at this point or stop what is about to happen. The Bank of England, the UN, and the Bank of International Settlements have all issued similar ominous warnings. The following is an excerpt from a recent article in The Guardian. Quote, "The IMF's warning echoes a chorus of others." The Bank of England's chief economist, Andy Haldane, has urged that the world is entering the latest episode of a, quote, three-part crisis trilogy, unquote. UNCTAD, the UN's trade and development arm, would like to see advanced economies boost public spending to offset the downturn in emerging economies. The Bank of International Settlements believes interest rates have been too low for too long, encouraging too much risk-taking in financial markets. All of them fear that the global financial system is primed for a crisis, unquote. Michael Snyder says, "I particularly like Andy Haldane's likening our current situation to a three-part crisis trilogy. I think that is perfect." Michael Snyder said, "If you are familiar with movie trilogies, then you know that the last episode is usually the biggest and the baddest." Citigroup economist William Butler also believes that big trouble is on the horizon. In fact, he is publicly warning of a global recession in 2016. Quote, Citigroup economist William Butler looks at the world landscape and sees an economy performing substantially below potential output, which he uses as the general benchmark of the idea of a global recession. With that in mind, he said the chances of a global recession in 2016 are growing. Quote, "We think that the evidence suggests that the global output gap is negative and that the global economy is currently growing at a rate below global potential growth. The negative output gap is therefore widening," unquote. Was it Buter, I think? I said Butler, sorry. Said in a note to clients. He added, quote, "From an output gap that was probably quite close to zero fairly recently, continued subpar global growth is likely to put the global economy back into a recession if indeed the world ever fully emerged of the recession caused by the global financial crisis," unquote. Usually when we, as Michael Snyder writes here at the Activist Post, usually when we are plunged into a new crisis, there is some sort of trigger event that creates widespread panic. Yesterday, as Michael Snyder says, I wrote about the ongoing problems at the commodity giants such as Glencore, Trafigura, I guess, and the Noble Group. I can't pronounce that word, folks. The collapse of any of them could potentially be a new Lehman Brothers moment. Remember Lehman Brothers? They just collapsed and everything. But something else happened, as Michael Snyder says, just yesterday that is also extremely concerning. Just a couple of weeks ago, Michael Snyder says, I warned that the biggest bank in Germany, Deutsche Bank, was on the verge of massive trouble. Well, on Wednesday, the bank announced a loss of more than $6 billion for the third quarter of 2015. Quote, Deutsche Bank's new boss, John Cryan, said about cleaning up Germany's biggest bank on Thursday, revealing a record pre-tax loss of 6 billion euros, that's $6.7 billion in American money, in the third quarter, and warning investors of a possible dividend cut. Write-downs, impairments, and litigation costs all contributed to the loss, the bank said. Cryan became executive chief in July with a promise to cut costs. The Britain is accelerating plans to Britain is accelerating plans to shed assets and exit countries to shrink the bank and is preparing to axe about 23,000 jobs, or a quarter of the bank's staff, sources told Reuters last month, unquote. Michael Snyder writes, keep an eye on Germany. The problems there are just beginning. Something else, as Michael Snyder writes, I am closely watching is the fact that the major exporting nations such as China that used to buy up lots of U.S. government debt are now dumping that debt at an unprecedented pace. The following comes from Wolf Richter. Quote, 5 large purchasers of U.S. treasuries, China, Russia, Norway, Brazil, and Taiwan, have changed their minds. They're dumping treasuries, each for their own reasons that are now coinciding. And at the fastest rate on record for the 12-month period ended in July, sales of treasuries by central banks around the world reached a net of $123 billion. Quote, the biggest decline since the data started to be collected in 1978, unquote, the Wall Street Journal reported. China, the largest foreign owner of treasuries, is its hoard peaking at $1.317 trillion in November 2013, has been unloading with particular passion. By July, the latest data available from the U.S. Treasury Department, China's pile was down to $1.2 trillion. Michael Snyder, that's unquote there. Michael Snyder says, yeah, I know the stock market went up once again on Thursday, and all of the irrational optimists are once again telling us that everything is going to be just fine. The truth, of course, is that everything is not going to be just fine. Ever since I started, as Michael Snyder writes here, ever since I started the Economic Collapse blog, I have never wavered in my belief that the greatest economic crisis the United States has ever seen is coming. And as he says, I have written well over 1,000 articles setting forth the case for the coming collapse in excruciating detail. Nobody is going to be able to say that I didn't try to warn them. Michael Snyder writes, those who have blind faith in Barack Obama, Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, and other major central banks around the planet will continue to mock the idea that a major collapse is coming for as long as they can. And when the day of reckoning does arrive and the crisis comes knocking at their door, what will they do then? Michael Snyder is a writer, speaker, and activist who writes and edits his own blogs, The American Dream and the Economic Collapse blog. He's also on Twitter. So there you go, folks. The idea that we are fine. Economically, the United States is just fine. Anybody who thinks that is a moron. Anybody that thinks that is what I talked about earlier. One of those people in opposition that absolutely positively does not know what they're talking about. Never have and never will. Or should I make the grammar proper? Never has and never will. Okay? Let me point something out to you folks. Rush Limbaugh is right. Glenn Beck is right. Alex Jones is right. Nick Tucker from Distorted Reality with Nick Tucker on Facebook. He's right. Brian Lang from LiveTruthRadio.com is right. Michael Vera over at Late Night in the Midlands is right. I'm right. Well, guess what? Let me ask you a question. How do you think things are going to fare when you lose your job because of the economic collapse? What's going to happen when your boss comes to you and says, hey, can I talk to you in the office for a minute? Because you know what that's going to lead to. What's going to happen when you get laid off or terminated from your job and can't get unemployment because of the financial crisis? Oh, and by the way, guess who runs the unemployment offices and sends out the checks or the cards to everybody now? J.P. Morgan Chase. Okay, you ever seen the real estate signs on the yards in your town? Chase, that's them. You see how connected it all is? You get a bank loan from Chase, you get unemployed, and then, of course, they take your house because your unemployment is not enough to pay for the house. Hello? So guess what? You're screwed. You're going to continue to be screwed until you realize what's going on and accept the fact that I don't care if you're conservative, liberal, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, you're all being screwed at this moment by the regime that is currently in the White House. And I don't know who's getting screwed worse. Because when you look at California, California is done. California is done. Shove it in the grave, put the dirt over it. It's done. There is no such thing as California, literally, only on paper. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, even if you want to tell me to, whatever, please email me at AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. Now, I know people will disagree with me all they want. That's why I was talking about opposition. People are going to oppose you earlier in the show. I know people are going to oppose me. I don't really care what they have to say. So go away. You don't know what you're talking about. When you get the information and you take what I give you and you want to, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to take his information and use it against him. You see what I'm talking about? The arrogance of these liberals, of these communists, of these socialists that think that freedom-loving patriots like myself and others have to be proven wrong. They're not going to admit that we're right. They're not even going to admit when they're wrong either. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, write me all you want. I want to hear from you. I will read your emails. Am I going to respond? Possibly. But I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see what you have to say. Well, you said you didn't care. Well, I don't, but I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see it. What's so wrong with that? I want to see where you stand. That's all. I don't have to agree with you. I really, so what? Well, you said you didn't care. It doesn't matter. I don't get emotionally attached to what you have to say in opposition to what the truth and the facts are. I just want to hear and see what you have to say. That's all. That's all. Because it's going to help me understand where you're coming from. That's all. So let me know. AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. Hey, if you have Periscope on your iPhone or Android, look up Spencer Hughes. You can also go to SpencerHughes.net for more information about that as well. If you want to listen to really, really, really in-depth reporting and discussions about what's going on other than this show, please stay here. But go check out Michael Vera at LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Go check him out as well. You want to hear about secret societies and who's actually running this ball game? Go to WakingUpTheMasses.com and listen to Robert Bruce. So, even though I may disagree with people, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to listen to them. And I hope that people feel the same way. Even though you disagree with me and oppose what I say, it doesn't mean that I won't. It doesn't mean that I hope that you would listen to me, but I will listen and see what you have to say about these things. It's only right, don't you think? I don't know, folks. We can do what we need to do to survive, and I'm sure we will. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. Ask me any question you like. No question is off limits. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. It's simple as that. In the meantime, folks, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go away, but I'll be back. Go to AmericanLibertyRadio.com if you want to know more. If you want to email me, it's AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com. That's AmericanLibertyRadio@USA.com.